Today I'm going to take the camshaft off. I've already made contact with a few places, and I've picked a place out that's going to be doing the machine shop work for me on this head at a good price. Having to block the front of the screen here with my hand to keep the direct sunlight off. This is what happens if I don't. Anyway, I'm pointing the camera right here because this is the inspection cover that needs to come off. It's got the 5 bolts in it. This round cover rounded in the front there with the 5 bolt holes. There's 2 on the bottom and 3 on the top. That cover needs to come off. I'm sorry I don't have good camera access on how to do this. I'll just have to try to explain it the best way I can, and maybe have to use some mirrors and stuff while we're doing it. But what I got to do is take that cover off, and I got to get a bolt loose off the camshaft gear. I've got to mount a retainer in front here on the and 3 of those 5 bolt holes that hold that cover on. There's a retaining tool that mounts on there, and I made mine by hand, so mine doesn't look like the factory one. I made it for a friend's truck a few years ago. We did this on his. I got to hold that gear in place so it doesn't get out of time with the other gears inside the gear case there, because that's a big gear case, and it's going to be a nightmare to take it off and redo all of that if anything comes apart on me, or if I drop anything in the gear case, a bolt or something. So that's what we got to do today. Got the engine on top dead center in the firing position, number 1 cylinder, also number 6. The opposite end is going to be in the same position, except this one's not going to be on firing. And the reason I know is my cam lobes. This cam lobe here, it opens and closes these 2, which are my intake valves. And then the intake valve opens and closes the other 2, or vice versa. I forget which one is intake, which one is exhaust on these cam lobes, but these 2 are my intake valves. These 2 are my exhaust valves back here. And we have to be on what they call valve overlap back here on number 6. We rotate the engine by hand until the piston is at the top like it is now. I'm reaching through the injector hole. And we got to have an exhaust cam on high cam and an intake cam on high cam. And the one in the middle is the injector cam, so we're not watching that one. We're watching the exhaust and the intake. They both got to be open slightly. That's what they call valve overlap. The exhaust valve is closing and the intake valve is opening. They're both open together slightly at the same time. On the opposite end, piston is in the same position on number 1. Both of these are on low cam. The high end of the cam lobe is facing down on both of them, and so we know this one is in the firing position. And the injector cam is right in the position to start lifting the injector and to punch the fuel down in that. So anyway, said all that to say we got to be in that position. And I turn the engine by hand. I do it by turning the fan. The book says to put a breaker bar on the crankshaft pulley. Well, I'm nowhere near the crankshaft pulley. It's way down under the truck, and I'm up here on top. So I turn it with the fan. We got to have it in that position so I can mark those timing gears, that camshaft gear, and we're gonna lock it in position and then take the camshaft out, and that gear is going to stay there held in that place. The camshaft is going to come out, and then we're going to take the head off. We got that cover off of there, and I'm looking in here, and I see right there somebody has painted. It might be when I had a bull gear changed on this motor a few years back. They painted the cam gear, and I see some peck marks on it underneath the paint on the cam gear, but I do not see a matching mark on the other gear that it's meshed with. And so I don't know why. Did they put it back on in the wrong spot? It was running fine. I don't think so. Anyway, I'm going to clean that off, that other gear, across from that mark that they put on the cam gear. I'm going to try to get some paint on that through this hole on both sides. If I can, I'm going to try. I got an adapter I made here, and I'm having a hard time taping this, recording this, because of the angle of the sun, and I can't do nothing about that. But that adapter, I'll have to show another clip of that. I made it originally, it goes across the center here, and this bolt hole is supposed to be right in the center to pull or to support the cam gear. But I had to cut a notch in it over here and mount it sideways and put a bolt through it to hold the cam gear still. There's 6 holes in the cam gear around the sides around it, and this bolt is going through one of those holes, so that when I put a wrench on this bolt, I can crack that bolt loose without the cam gear turning. I was starting to try to do it with an impact turned way down low, but I was scared it was going to be too much power if I turned it up, that it might break the gear teeth on the cam gear, so I was scared to take a chance with that. So I went on, the book says to mount this thing, support it, lock it in place with a special tool that they make. Well, I made my own tool to hold the gear in place once everything is off, and I just adapted that tool, modified it a little bit to use it for this other tool as well, and that's what I'm doing now. I'll try to get a little more video on that on the workbench, maybe when we're done, before I put this video up, but time is an issue right now, so that's where we're at right now. I'm getting ready to break this bolt loose with a breaker bar. I got this cam gear bolt out. It was extremely tight. I'm going to say at least 200-300 foot-pounds of torque. It's a fine thread bolt, and it's a little bit smaller than this bolt here, which is probably a 7/8, so I'm not sure what size it is. But this one threads into the gear and will pull it out. This one goes through that threaded part and into the camshaft. And this one, like I said, threads into the gear, or at least a bolt that size. This is in the kit. I don't know if it was an extra bolt we had for some reason. I don't remember how we did it, but I'm taking this thing back off, and then I'm going to mount it on there with this hole centered so it goes right through the cam gear and pulls the cam gear out. Here it is off the thing up there. I got a spacer, piece of pipe I cut off and put on there, and this thing had to go through a hole and had to go sideways. Where my thumb is here was the center of the whole thing. I put this on a little bit sideways so I could reach through the center with this tool here, 27mm, and get that bolt off of the center of the cam gear. So now I'm going to take this thing back apart and then mount it centered on the hole up there and pull the cam gear. I'm taking these caps off for these cam bolts, and there's a special, let's see, it goes in this way, goes right through that and locks down, but there's a special socket you're supposed to use on this, and I don't have one. This one just came out, it was loose. But here's what I'm going to do. The nut that was on top of that, and here's the other one just like it on this end. I'm double nutting that. And at first I put 18mm wrench on it, and then I'm double nutting it. I tried tightening it down just with 2 wrenches, but it's not coming out that way, so I'm going to put an impact on this top one. And I still got to do all this holding the camera in my hand because I can't get a tripod up here. I got that working now. impacted that top nut down onto the lower one, and I double wrenched it to break it loose. So that's coming out now. And that's what the directions said, is to take all these cam cap bolts off at this point after getting that main bolt out of the front there. I don't know whether I said it or not, but I had two other bolts behind the cam gear that had to come out. You really need to have the directions on this when you're trying to do this job. Don't watch me for directions. Just watch the trouble I had and what I went through to get it done. We're out here in the dark now doing this, and got this adapter, this tool on here, and it's a metric thread bolt. I threaded it into that hub, that gear hub, and pulled the gear hub out. The direction said about 1/4 inch, and this plate right here follows it, comes out with it. So we brought that out about 1/4 inch. Here's the bolt that I threaded into that hub, and this blue gasket here that's got the corners on it, that's called a diamond seal, and we'll put another one on when we put the head, when the head is off, before we put the new head back on, or the rebuilt head. So pulled the camshaft out. We had to slide the camshaft back a little bit and then stick a screwdriver underneath it, and just the vacuum, the thing weighs about 50 pounds, and the vacuum of the oil was kind of holding it in place. We got it out. I lifted it up out of there and handed it to my friend that's down below, and then we found a place to safely set it down. So that's where we're at for now. Got to get the head bolts out, and I think we're ready to pull the head after that. Do that tomorrow in the daylight.